Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to this partnering session where I am going to take Igor into a little yoga practice. I will give tips and tricks for you to work with your partner, for you to assist your friend as they go through different postures. It's going to be very easy, very simple postures with a lot of emphasis on the breath as usual. Take your friend and have him or her lay down in Savasana. Okay, this is my friend Igor. I'm going to uncover him just for the sake of showing you how I shall treat his body. We might come back with a blanket later. Okay, so we have a few different options. Once you see that your friend is relaxed and in a comfortable yet sort of formal Savasana position with the feet a little bit wider than the hips are wide, the arms alongside the body with the palms looking slightly up towards the ceiling. So you feel the whole chest gets that width, pelvis can relax, and the hips can naturally fall into their rotation. Depending a little bit on your friend, of course, I would say a good place to start is to make the connection and have them connect with their breathing, especially if they're somewhat of a beginner in the yoga practice. So come close to their belly, take a hand, and just lay it on their abdomen. No need to push. Just allow the weight of your hand to sink. And you will feel the movement of the breath. And usually when you connect with the hand like this, breath kind of comes up to meet the hand. So it's a good way for you also to direct the breath towards the place where you want it, in the belly. You want to give your friend time. And with time, you'll find that the body starts softening. Breath probably becomes a little deeper. My friend here, I can feel the presence of my hand, and his relaxation is making his digestive system work. Lots of movement. And then we remove the hand, and we're going to go to the feet. If you can, you squat like so by their feet, or if it's more comfortable, you can stand up or maybe find a pillow to be on. Or catch the weight of his legs or his body in my hands and just feel that he's relaxed. You will feel that if there's tension they are holding, then just encourage them, maybe lower the arms a little bit, maybe shake them about a bit, or even verbally cue them that you want them to relax their legs. And just to give a little bit of movement in the spine, start very soft, very subtle rocking. Just pushing the hands a little forward, a little back. And once again, you want to give time. When you want a person to relax, time is not just a luxury, but it's essential. The process of relaxation asks for time, since most of us have all these layers of tension that we contend with. And after a while, maybe you can pull a little bit, lean back. For you, as the assister, as the teacher, as the guiding friend, also take care of your posture, of your body. I try to make sure my shoulders are open, that I have a solid seat so I don't feel fragile in any way, but I can provide stability, which will help my friend to relax. And then drop their feet down. Make sure they relax their legs on the ground. And then I'll take it around to the shoulders. Before you relate to them physically, make sure that your seat is very comfortable. You feel grounded, you feel centered, you feel that you can support them. Once you have found such a seat, just very softly encourage his shoulders to relax. And I'm not doing much. I'm placing my hand, maybe directing the attention a little bit more towards the opening of that shoulder. And do both shoulders at the same time or one by one. If you're not used to massaging or assisting, then let all this take a lot of time. I keep shifting the weight from shoulder to shoulder, and without being intrusive in any way, I'm just merely suggesting with the direction of my pressure and the weight of my hands that I want his upper back to sink down towards the ground. If you want to be extra nice, which we want to be today, you can also give them a tiny bit of pressure on the shoulder. So I take my thumbs, or you can take the heel of the hand and just go into this soft space here at the top of the shoulder. I like to use my thumbs, I will do that. And with your hands, you're not trying to achieve anything. You're not trying to make them relax. You are barely with presence and a soft, gentle touch, allowing them to get to that place of relaxation by themselves. I think I'm going to do one more hand here in Savasana, giving them that luxury of time. And we're going to finish off this first posture exactly where we started, in the belly. Place your hand, connect with the breathing. Light, gentle touch, just indicating your presence. We're going to place our friend in a kind of reverse child's pose. So I will ask him to take his knees and bring them towards his chest. Allow him to do this transition very slowly. Feel a little saucy after this nice Savasana. He wants to interlace his fingers around and really have that be the only place where you do a little bit of effort maintaining that grip. Now, depending on the friend you have, you may need to have a yoga strap or a scarf to create a longer arm if the knees feel further away. And that is much better than if they would go, let's say, like so, coming up too much so the lower back comes off the floor and it kind of strangles the breathing. You want the whole length, the whole width of their upper body to be grounded. If they are not already, encourage them to deepen their breath slightly. Especially if they have lower back issues or if they experience tension and pain in the hips, then you want to facilitate that feeling of the breath moving down towards that area where the tightness resides. And use that breath almost like a wave sweeping through the spine, landing in your hips, landing in the lower back, moving the energy there. And then every time you exhale, you want to encourage them to relax, to release the weight of the bones and be held by gravity. After giving them a little time, let's give them a hand. I take my hands and I find the fingers right here in the crease at the front of the hips. I grab the weight of the pelvis. Once again, find a comfortable stance for yourself, where you feel centered, where you feel stable. And then I simply lean back, pulling the pelvis, reaching the hips away from the ribcage. It's not a big pull. Once again, you want them to meet you in their practice. You are just facilitating and demonstrating the direction that you suggest they move the breath and the awareness to. If you feel very familiar with your friend, intimate with your friend, you can place their feet here on your chest or in your belly, depending on how your proportions align. And then do the same thing. Catch hold of their hips, pull the pelvis slightly, but then lean in with your chest so you are providing them with that constriction in the front of the hips to breathe into, lengthening in the back of the hips to enjoy. The foot stepping on your belly or on your chest, they will also connect them with your breath. So you can exaggerate your breathing a little bit so they feel it. Then we let the hips relax. We release the feet. And we allow the feet to drop down to the ground. Stay in your seat. See if you can get to this position where you kind of have their ankles in between your inner thighs, their knees at close range, and then you are going to interlace your fingers around their legs and just pull slightly back. Once again, providing this slight relief for the lower back. It's a very subtle, very small movement, but they feel it on the inside. Once again, creating a bit more space for that breath to move in and clean tension, clear tension. And I like this. You let go, take the knees, your hands, and then you just pull the femur bone, the thigh bone back into the hip. And I will place myself here to keep that grip. And I softly come to the front of the hips again, encouraging that softening. Very gently, soft fingers. Let's bring them to a twist. Actually, you're going to tell them to go to a twist. So they bring their knees up, they drop their knees down to whichever. Let's start on the left side and extend the right arm out. Now, if this would be an alignment session, I would definitely tell them to try to align their pelvis with their rib cage and their upper back. Now I'm just going to allow Igor to relax here, so I'm not going to care that much about alignment. It's a little curved here, but I think that's also nice for his lower back to breathe into. Okay, now we change positions. I'm going to come up here by his shoulder. So I'm sitting like so. This is a little tricky. I have very flexible hips, so for me it's easy to relate to the floor and find comfortable positions where my pelvis and my hips are comfortable. You may have to carry a block with you or a pillow with you, or find a position for you to assist your friend in that does not hurt you. Okay. From here, I will take one hand and I will reach it towards his hip, and I try to catch hold of a bone. Yeah? And then I just lean slightly, so I pull once again that hip away from the rib cage, creating much more space in the lower back. Then I take the other hand and I place it on top of his shoulder, like so. And then once again, not too much weight, just gently encouraging the shoulder to sink down. When you move the shoulder down towards the floor, I'm going to show you here. One thing that really helps is keeping kind of an external rotation of his arm. That will encourage the top of the shoulder to stay soft and relaxed, and it will be easier for them to relax in the position with the shoulder blades moving towards the ground. You can also do this. You can take the hand and place it on the upper arm, and then gently lead the head of the humerus bone of the upper arm bone into the shoulder. That proximity, that intimacy between the head and the socket, that allows all the connective tissue inside to relax, which will feel very good. So one hand on the hip, leaning slightly away, moving that hip away from the rib cage, and then one hand softly, softly allowing the shoulder blade to drop. Let's do the other side. Tell them to come back to center. And for most people, you will need a little bit of time to readjust here. The asymmetry can make the hips feel a little achy or the lower back feel a bit achy. So give them time. And then let them drop down to the other side. Hello, friend. Okay, maybe here you can see a little better. So, one hand on the hip, like so, very softly. just drawing the hip away from the rib cage. Small, small movements. You will find when the body protests, when it doesn't go any further, then release, bring it a little bit back, so you stay on the conservative side of the edge. And then allow the breath to move instead. Another thing you can do if you find that they're breathing in their chest is to bring a hand to the belly or bring a hand to the lower back to once again, through your presence, allow the breath to slowly come to meet you. The other hand will move up here to the shoulder. Just a little weight, just a suggestion of direction. You want the arm to rotate externally. Slowly, slowly allow the shoulder blade to sink down towards the floor. Of course, you can push and see if you can bring the person to their edge, their full possibility, range of flexibility. But I think that's not necessary. Through my own practice, I feel like it's good to allow time, to allow for relaxation to stand at the center, for a calm mind and a calm breath to stay at the center, and then let the posture slowly, slowly evolve, shift, change. And when you're working with a friend, you want the friend to have that similar experience, so you give them time. A little bit of weight, definitely your presence. And then we slowly, slowly withdraw, and we tell them to come back to center and do whatever rebalancing they need to do. You can also, in this position, besides letting them just hang out on the floor like that, which I like, but if you want to be more proactive, then once again, you can take the feet, bring them a little closer, so that you can fit your legs next to them. Take the arms, cradle their thighs in your hands, and pull slightly. Now I'm going to tell my friend to go to child's pose. Could you move a little forward, Igor? Tiny bit. So now, my friend, he has done yoga for many, many years, so his ankles are relatively flexible and available. His knees can take the posture, his lower back and hips as well. If your friend is not is flexible, then maybe take a pillow or a blanket and curl it up here below their ankles. Maybe they need one for their knees, or maybe they just want a soft blanket on the ground. Make sure your friend is comfortable. Ask them, are you comfortable, friend? He's nodding, so I think he is. Many different approaches here. I think child's pose is wonderful to treat the spine and the hips. I think I start here. One warm hand in the sacrum of the lower back. Once again, very softly, just giving a slight direction with the indication of my hand towards his toes, towards the ground, as though you wanted to shift the pelvis slightly away from the rib cage. And I'm not pushing the upper back, I'm instead encouraging him to use every single exhale and feel the weight of the head sinking down, shoulders softening, allowing the rib cage almost fall away from the pelvis, creating this wonderful feeling of space around the kidneys. Then from here, maybe a warm hand on one side here, reaching for the kidney area, somewhere in between the middle and lower back. Softly, softly. Now I can give quite a lot of weight because I don't weigh that much. Maybe you have to hold back a little bit. Just apply soft pressure. Shift to the other one. Keep checking the breathing. Now I can see that Igor is breathing all the way down here. So the energy of his breath is kind of massaging his hips, moving into the hip flexor here, creating a slight bulging and a softening when he exhales, which feels so nice. If you see that your friend is carrying tension in the shoulders, or if you know that they accumulate the weight of life in their shoulders, then why not come here and once again give them a little soft presence with your hands, with your thumbs. I like to dig my thumbs into, if you trace the upper part of the shoulder blade, you get to a point right before it meets the vertebrae, very soft and gooey. And if you stick your thumbs in there, it usually allows them to really feel the release of the neck as the skull sinks down and the shoulders relax the opposite way. Indicate that direction with your hands, with your thumbs. Now, the best thing you can do for your friend is to have a lot of patience. When we are assisting somebody in something, we usually feel like we're not doing enough, so we get a little fidgety, we change our position, our direction, our intention. But something as simple as this, with the luxury of time, is so wonderful for a practitioner. Two very simple things to do in child's pose. You can also do this. So again, if you feel that their hips is the main thing, or they have issues in the lower back, a similar thing that we did in the reverse child's pose, grabbing hold here, finding the crease at the front of the hips with not too pokey fingertips because then it's going to tickle them. Place yourself a certain distance and then just lean back. And it will pull the hips away from the rib cage, allowing the rib cage to fall down and away from the hips. encouraging the waves of breath to move down towards the lower back and into the hips, so that the friend's breath is stretching out the spine, the hips, the lower back, from the inside. You're just directing them. If you find that your friend has a shorter breath or they feel a bit unsettled, you can also encourage the breathing simply by placing a very light hand right here between the rib cage and the hips. Just the presence of your hands will eventually draw the breath in there. And if not, verbally cue them. Say, breathe into my hands. Now I'm going to ask my friend to come up and sit. Friend, come up and sit. So we're going to take them away from the comfort of gravity and put them in a cross-legged posture, like so. Let's see. Could you sit profile first? Yeah, that's enough. Now, once again, maybe your friend doesn't have the accessibility to go all the way into a pretzel shape. My friend does. Maybe you want to place them in a more Savasana position, like so. Maybe even take a yoga block or a pillow and park below the bum. What you're looking for is this. Let me show you. Here, the crease at the front of Igor's hips, right here, is very soft and gooey. It feels like melted dough. And that's exactly the feeling you're looking for. And this is the first place that I address when I teach my students, simply because the psoas, as it travels from inside here and all the way up, it attaches right by the diaphragm, so it's greatly affected by your breath. And in turn, your breath is greatly affected by the condition of the psoas. Now here, when his hip is very soft, then I know that his psoas is relaxing, which enables him to really increase and deepen his breathing, so it goes below the chest, so it goes down towards the rib cage, down towards the hips where I want it. Now, for some of our friends out there, this position doesn't come this easy, even if you have pillows and blocks to help them. Then why not place a couple of warm hands in the lower back? Direct them slightly so you feel like you're almost pushing the pelvis in to the head of the femur bone. Almost like two pieces of a Lego clicking together in there. And this, if nothing else, will for sure settle their hips, relaxing that psoas in the front. Now, if you know that they're struggling to keep themselves in the upright position, then let your hands stay there. Eventually, the feeling of stable support will really allow them to relax the upper back. And when the upper back relaxes, it's easier for the diaphragm to relax, for the belly to relax. And then once again, the breath can flow a bit of freedom. If your friend is comfortable here, then you can work on other aspects. Maybe just placing those hands once again in the areas where you suggest the breath to move towards. This is also nice. If you come here on the side, then you place one hand here and one hand here, and you let the breath create space between your hands. Give them time. Another thing that very often happens when we start sitting up, and if we're not so used to the meditation seat, is that there may be some tension in the shoulders. You can, of course, just pull the shoulders down slightly, just add the weight of your hands. But I like to take it through the alignment of the bone structure. So I take their upper arm and I just indicate that they want to rotate slightly externally. And allow that external rotation to create width in their chest, space for their heart. Now that external rotation of the arms, that width in the chest, is very well supported if you show them by kind of leaning on the shoulder blades. So it's almost like the shoulder blades is a support system for the chest to rest upon. You can even indicate slightly like this, allowing the weight of the chest to sink back towards your hands so the solar plexus and the heart protrude slightly upwards. And the weight of the shoulder blades to sink. Just soft indications with your fingers for direction, support. My friend is looking very good in his posture. Nice alignment of the spine, that soft relaxation of the hips. I can see how the breath keeps traveling very calmly out into his rib cage. I can see how those pointers of the shoulders, it stays in his awareness, in his consciousness. Then we're going to have our friend slowly leaning forward in this position. Now, some of your friends may, if they attempted this seat, maybe their legs fell asleep, the hips fell asleep. In that case, you tell them to unfold and shake some energy back into the legs. And whenever they are ready, you're going to lean forward like Igor's doing now. Give them time to settle into the posture. Don't be too eager to go in and correct what you think is needed to correct. Give them time. When they have landed in their posture, I go to the hip once again, in the alignment of the pelvis. Here I would say, I see that Igor's sit bones are lifting slightly up. And it's not that that is wrong per se, but the landing of the sit bones in the ground gives a good indication of the alignment of the pelvis, which in turn informs the alignment of your spine. So I'm going to move his sit bones, his whole pelvis back towards the ground, just gently indicating with my hands. This is another grip that you can use, which maybe feels a little easier. Find that crease at the front of the hips, and then send the sit bones back down towards the floor. Whilst you are here, another little tip that you can give your friend is if you look at the femur bone and how it lands in the hip, Just like we were rotating the humerus bone inside the shoulder, the upper arm and the shoulder, we want to give an indication of how we want the bone structure to rotate here. So find a place very close to his hip and just pull slightly, spiral slightly outwards. Don't expect anything to happen. All you're doing is indicating the direction that you want them to imagine, to think, to direct their hips to move into. And I will tell my friend, please slowly sit up, come all the way up to sitting. And from here, we're going to take our friend into a twist. Friend, could you turn forwards so we see your beautiful face? So we have that same, no, like this, wait, stay. So we have the same starting position. Once again, check their hips. So, yeah, so they come up, they find more or less that same upright posture, that ease of breathing. And then you want them to rotate towards their right or the left, it doesn't really matter. As they rotate into it, what you want to do is first make sure that they are grounded through the sit bones. So I take the sit bone that is opposite of the direction they're twisting towards, and I really, here I suggest with quite a lot of weight that I want that sit bone to stay grounded. So we don't compromise the placement of the pelvis in favor of going deeper into the twist. Once I feel that they have received that information, then indicating with a hand where you feel maybe it would be useful for them to breathe towards, like here. You want them to feel the breath widening the rib cage, almost like an accordion. There's a lot of energy, movement, massaging for those intestines, for the organs. On the upper part, you don't see it, but Igor has his hands on the floor and he's really supporting himself on that hand. And then once again, indicate just slightly that external rotation of the front arm. There's width in the chest. Maybe if you feel like the neck is not perfectly aligned, maybe just place 2 thumbs just on the side of the neck vertebrae. Let's see if I can show you here and on the other side. And a soft grip, just taking the skull slightly upwards so it feels like it's floating. Some of your friends may be over-eager and spiral the head as well. That's completely fine. Just try to find that effortless, long alignment from the tailbone all the way up to the base of the skull, up through the top of the head, with a little spiral at the center. And they go to the other side, slowly, slowly. Maybe if you want to change your legs, if you want to do something, you do that. My friend is happy, he's smiling. I go to the other side and I see the state of the pelvis. Find that crease here in front of the hip. Indicate with your hand that you need the whole side of that pelvis, or the side of that pelvis, to sink down towards the ground so it doesn't lift up, eager to follow the twist. Check for the movement of breath. If you can discern the breath in the rib cage, making sure that they're breathing with a relaxed, jellyfish-like diaphragm. Keep sending the energy of the breath out, massaging the organs, widening the rib cage, just like an accordion. Now we have the upper back. That slight suggestion of an external rotation. Maybe a little bit in the skull. Reaching the skull upwards, allowing the shoulders to sink. Now all your suggestions, physical or verbal, they want to be done very calmly. It's very easy to get over-eager in trying to adjust what you see in the body. But you have to take into consideration their history, the structure of their body, the density of the muscles. Some of your friends may need a lot of time here just to convince that butt cheek to sink down to the ground, aligning the pelvis so the spine stays aligned. Some of your friends may be very ambitious and carry a lot of that ambition in the shoulders, so then just an easy weight of the hand on top and make them aware of that. It's not you forcing them to do anything, you're just indicating what you're seeing, and you allow them and their practice to come and meet your guidance. Now friend, come back to center. Okay. Now we are going to stand our friend up. By just telling them to do so. Okay. Friend, turn into a profile. Okay. Sorry, a little dark. Huh? We're a little dark. That's okay. We are a little dark. So, now you have your friends standing up. A couple of things. We're going to help them with the alignment when they stand up. That structural bone alignment. You want their heels to be parked right below their sit bones. So trace the bone all the way from the sit bones to the heels, or from the heels to the sit bone. So you see that they are aligned. Maybe even ask them to bend their knees. Bend your knees, Iko. That's it. Then will really allow you to see if the knees go in towards each other or if they move out, then you might want to shift the distance between the heels. Now straighten your legs again. For me, the placement of the feet is very important. It's a very stabilizing practice to bring awareness to how you're standing and how you're walking. You want to feel weight on your heels, the whole bone of the heel growing roots in the ground. So you indicate that with your hands to your friend. You want their outside edges of their feet to be solidly grounded as well. So you indicate that. Now that might mean, could you do wrong? Could you lift up a little bit too much in the inside? Yeah, this might happen. Then We're just going to take the base of the toe, the big toe, and just gently guide it back while you keep encouraging the outside edge of the foot to drop down. What?
Friend,
Yes.
it's too dark. You have to.
What's happening? How? Because you're seeing in the camera.
Yes. Much better now. They can see.
Okay. Come, friend. Now where?
Yes.
Yes. He's placed well again. Heels, outside edges of the feet and the base of the toes, sinking down to the ground. The toes want to feel relaxed. Then you come up to the hips. You need to pull up my friend's t-shirt. A lot of people, they have that feeling, can you tuck under? They tuck under with their hips. That you want to discourage. If this is how your friend is looking, then I would suggest you take the pelvis and you soften once again here at the front. Try to, yes, like that. One way to do this is through the feet. Maybe that's a little complicated. If they're standing more on their heels and they want to carry the weight of their hips right on top of their heels, that necessitates a slight arching of the lower back. Just a little ducktail, the natural curvature that they have here. So you want to check on them. Also, it will inform you. Make sure that they are standing with the weight of the pelvis solidly down on their heels. And once again, want to lengthen their spine, maybe grab hold here, the base of the neck, and just indicate with two thumbs or the heels of the hands that you want them to lift from the base of the skull upwards towards the ceiling. And then we come to that external rotation of the arms again. Just a little bit. Now my friend is standing very well. Maybe, if you look at him from profile, there's a little bit too much opening here in the chest. So then just draw his ribcage slightly in together. Good. Now, go down to a forward bend. Now I have the luxury of Igor being a seasoned yogi, and none of the positions are really causing him any difficulties. I'm sure not all of our friends are the same. So, if, for example, let's say, could you fake it that you don't have this crease in the front of the hips? Try to straighten your legs and like take the curve from, yes. This is a more common sight that I see in my students. Then I will definitely encourage them to bend their knees. Make sure that the knees point straight over the second and third toe. That will keep the alignment. Because the bending of the knees here, it frees up the hip socket. So you feel that you have space here, softening here. Maybe this is a good place to start. Take your fingers and find that crease at the front of the hips. Just dig into it slightly and pull slightly upwards. Now here, as you see, me and my friend, we can relate intimately. If you feel a little shy, then just step a little bit away. But I think it's good to get close to each other. So indicate that you want the front of the hip to relax. Indicate on the other side of the spectrum, up here by the shoulders, that you need the shoulders to relax. Very often what you see is, can you tense your shoulders and reach with your hands? Like as if you did not reach further back. Yes, very often you will see this. And if you look at this in profile, you see that the neck gets short and there's a lot of tension being built here on the side of the neck. A lot of tension being built unnecessarily. And usually this is just us striving to go down towards the floor or defending against those feelings in the back of the legs that appear. So, if this is your friend, then maybe once again, two thumbs, the heel of the hand, and a slight indication that you want them to soften the top of the shoulders. Now Igor's shoulders feel like dome, really nice. If you find that the tension in the neck subsides, then maybe just a couple of fingers here at the base of the neck, guiding them to relax the weight of the skull. One thing that feels very good here is to put a slight bit of pressure on the pelvis, a little bit. It's as though I'm sending the pressure from my hands down through his legs, down towards the floor. And here I will ask him to come up and meet my pressure, to not give into it. So there's a sense of strengthening the legs. Push the heels down. Add a little bit more of energy around the kneecap. Another nice thing that feels nice for our practitioners is a warm hand in the lower back, warm hand in the upper back. And now, step back to down dog. This is the most we will ask of our friend today, down dog. Allow them to settle, to find their down dog. He will have his knees bent so that his hips are relaxed in the front. Now with him, I will do this. I see that his pelvis is slightly misaligned. His left butt cheek sticks up a little higher than his right. So I would indicate with my finger in the crease here to lift slightly up. That's it. And then a couple of warm hands on his pelvis, sending the energy of the palm of my hand directly down towards his heels. So once again, it's up to him to meet the pressure of my hands through strengthening the legs. Moving the heels down, reaching the pelvis up, but then using the fact that I carry the weight of his pelvis, sending it diagonally backwards and upwards to really release the weight of his spine down. So I will tell him to soften his jaw and feel the weight of his skull, and every time that he exhales, imagine the skull getting a little bit heavier. Another element here, of course, is the shoulders. Here, if we go for that external rotation again, slightly opening so the inner elbows are looking in towards each other. If you find there's a lot of tension, then once again, softly moving the thumbs down into the top vertebrae, towards the top vertebrae from the shoulder. Are you breathing, Igor? Is he breathing? Let's see. Yes, very nice. Let's ask him to take 1, 2 more breaths. Now with him I can give a lot of weight, also because my weight is not so big. If you find that your friend starts tensing up, then you have gone a little too far and you want to backtrack. Now, my dear friend, come back down through a cat position and into child's pose. Oh. Whether we are seasoned practitioners or not, we will feel some sensitivity in the hips and sensitivity in the lower back. So Once again, a couple of warm hands in the spine without too much pressure, indicating the pelvis sinking away from the rib cage, moving the sit bones a little closer to the heels, relaxing the neck, relaxing the shoulders. The more I teach, the more students that I meet, the less intrusive my uh, adjustments or accompaniments to their practices. I find that merely the presence and the warm touch and the intention, maybe giving a slight direction, that's enough. Everything else feels like it's a little hasty. You don't need for them to change their body that quickly. You don't need for them, or you don't need to change your body that quickly. You just want to give indications of where you feel that they should relax a bit more, that they can relax a bit more. If you find that there's something a little off about their alignment, you indicate with very soft fingers, very soft adjustments. And that way, the practice remains in their hands. And you're just a kind presence, soft assistant. Now Igor is going to sit up and he's going to go to a Baddha Konasana. Eh?
Then you get
What do you want?
little block.
Little block. The flat block?
Yeah.
Now, once again, I am spoiled by the fact that Igor knows what he's doing, and that may not be the case with your friend. So, if you see that the posture looks very confined, looks very uncomfortable, then ask them first to experiment with placing their feet maybe a little further forward or a little further back. This posture, I would say, there's been many ways to say that we have to do it like this. The feet should be forward in yin, for as close back as possible during a more strenuous yang hatha practice. And I say that is not what I teach. What I teach is, if you look at your structure, and it's very individual to all of us, you want to find where the femur bone, the head of the femur bone, comes in to the pocket of your hip joint in the most favorable way. Now those sockets, those pockets, in some of us it's further front, and in some of you it's further out like that. So where you place your bones is very much dependent on how you are designed inside. And the only way you have to get that, if you don't get an x-ray, is through experimenting through the sensations. When you reach a place where, let's say that this is the socket and this is the head of the bone, if you go too far out here, then you're going to crash against the lip of your hip joint, of your hip socket, and that's going to hurt. And that is the compression that is bone against bone, which doesn't serve you at all. And this is why when you have a beginner friend, come back, you allow them to experiment a little bit where they feel like, this is the easiest, most comfortable position for me. Yeah, I think Igor has found that. When they have found their comfortable position, come from behind, place yourself well, and guess what? You come to that soft space in the front of the hips once again. And I make sure that it feels doughy, that it feels gooey. And then I sink my fingers a little deeper in. Now, the aim of this is to align the pelvis so that both sit bones, both sides of the pelvis are sinking down with equal weight. That alignment of the pelvis is, well, at least for me, the most important thing in almost any posture. When I feel like he's aligned in his pelvis, then I will try to, you don't see me now, but I take a hand and I place it in his sacrum, in his lower back, and I push him slightly forward. So his pelvis moves in closer to the head of the femur bone. Then from here, I'm going to take my hands and place them on the rib cage. See that there's breath. They can breathe. That's another indication that they have found a good posture. Because if you can relax in your hips, it's easier to relax in the diaphragm, and then the breath sinks with greater ease. Now, because we are moving towards Savasana again, I'm going to allow Igor to take this in a very yin-like fashion. So, just leaning forward with the weight of his head, allowing his shoulders to sink down, find a good place for his hands. You keep checking the pelvis, making sure that it doesn't pull up, that it doesn't move away from the ground or from the block or from the pillow. Your anchor, your hands that are anchoring the pelvis in this position will really allow him to relax the weight of the skull and the weight of the upper back. And that feels so good because then the breath can move in and clean out some of the tension around the kidneys and the middle back. Spread out the lower back, give a little massage to the intestines, maybe come all the way down to the pelvic floor. You get that sensation of a very full breath. Another thing you can do here is once again indicate with your hands that slight external rotation of the thigh bone inside the hip joint. Slight, very little. If you feel like there is some tension appearing in the shoulders, maybe use your hands to bring that tension down. Maybe even offer them a little massage in the shoulders here, compensating for the discomfort in the hips. When you find that they are settled in good posture, they have sunk their pelvis, they have relaxed their shoulders, and maybe just a couple of warm hands in the lower back, in the middle back to draw the breath to the presence of the hands. Then we ask them to slowly withdraw from the posture, slowly come up, take their sweet time. And then I think we shall go back to the ground. Let's go back to the ground. Now that was a lot for the hips, even for a seasoned practitioner such as this one. So we want to give them a little wiggle once again. This feels so nice. So we pick up their legs, We allow them to relax the hips. We check that they are breathing well. The breath is not too labored, or that it, under the influence of your touch and that comfort of gravity, that it slowly, slowly comes back to a calmer, deeper pattern. Leaning a little bit back. This lengthens his lower back. I feel so comfortable. Leaning a little bit in, pushing those femur bone into the hip joint. And then once again, pulling out. Closer. And a little rocking. Softly. Now you may feel like you're not doing much. It's a very subtle movement, very small movement. And sometimes these small, subtle movements are much more effective because they're not violating the person's space with a very strong indication. Just a little treatment for the spine, a lullaby for the spine. Giving them time. Let the legs drop. If this feels so good, so if you feel comfortable with your friend, I would suggest that you take two warm hands and you place them right here where the thigh meets the hip, not too close to the center. Without putting a lot of pressure, you just give a little bit of weight, tiny bit of weight. Come back to the shoulders. One shoulder at a time, both at the same time. Now, because we're at the end of our assisted practice, I apply a little bit more encouragement, a bit more weight. The muscles have worked, mind has connected. You can apply a bit more pressure. But even so, even though I give time, very important. A little treat for the shoulders, for the neck perhaps. Just drop my thumbs into his top of his shoulder. At the same time, with my fingertips, kind of indicate that I want the whole width of the upper back to slowly start sinking towards the ground. And then we bookend the practice just like we started. Soft hand here, to practice like this, being guided by somebody. It asks not just a lot from the assistant guide, but also of the practitioner. You want to develop, you want to cultivate an element of trust. That is why you move very slowly and apply very little weight, or you don't push into those adjustments, but very, very soft. So it feels like the practice is still in their hands. And your accompaniment is just a welcome act of kindness, a support. At some point, maybe you want to leave your friend in peace to do Savasana in privacy, or maybe just simply accompanied by doing your own Savasana with them, or a little meditation, a little sitting. Friend, how was that? Did it feel nice? Yes. This friend liked it, and I hope your friend liked it as well. Good. I hope you have a wonderful time together now. Maybe your friend can cook you dinner, breakfast, lunch, invite you out for a drink. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, and I will see you again sometime soon.